Welcome to the SVG TV News for Monday, February 27th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Technology, Camilo Gonzalez, is hoping for bipartisan consensus on the need for pension reform. In Parliament last Thursday, the Finance Minister was asked by the opposition MP for Central Kingstown, Major Sinclair Leacock, when was the last actuarial report on the NIS presented to Parliament, and whether it is true that the financial report of the NIS indicates that if reform is not implemented, the NIS will have to borrow funds to pay benefits for the next 15 years. In his response, the Finance Minister said he's hoping that the dialogue can continue on the NIS and pension reform as they seek to engage the public on the options and implications of pension reform. He noted that the first actuarial review of the NIS was done in February 1992, and that in pursuant to Section 17 of the NIS Act, the board engages LifeWork Bahamas Limited, an independent actuarial firm, to conduct the 11th actuarial evaluation of the NIS fund as at December 31st, 2019. Minister Gonzalez said the valuation was conducted in the fiscal year 2021 for the actuary to carefully consider the impact of the overlapping challenges of the pandemic and the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano on the sustainability of the fund, and that after extensive deliberations between the board of the NIS and the actuary, LifeWork Bahamas Limited, the report of the 11th actuarial review of the NIS was submitted in August of 2021. Minister Gonzalez noted that the work was interrogated by the Ministry of Finance, particularly in light of the stated resolve to engage in pension reform this year. He said based on the findings and the significant recommendations in the report of the 11th actuarial review of the NIS and previous advice from external auditors, the NIS board has further engaged the services of the World Bank to conduct an independent peer review of the 11th actuarial evaluation report, which is not only in line with best practice, but is quite prudent.
Because the recommendations of the 11th report require the NIS to make several parametric changes to improve the financial sustainability of the National Insurance Fund. Also, the unprecedented economic volatilities in 2020, 2021, and 2022, together with the demographic challenges dictated that the assumptions and models used in the valuation be further reviewed and calibrated. To this end, the RAMP team of the World Bank Treasury was engaged to further assess the following. 1. The quality of data used in the 60-year projection period of 2019 to 2079. Second, the appropriateness and applicability of the economic, financial, and demographic assumptions used in the report over that 60-year period. The third, the consistency and reliability of the findings and results. And finally, the robustness and future impact of the recommendations that are contained in the 11th report, because we wanted to project forward to make sure that the reforms that we are contemplating would have the desired effect on the sustainability of the fund. Accordingly, as the Minister of Finance, I received a letter dated February 14th, 2023 from the World Bank regarding a mission to St. Vincent and the Grenadines by the RAMP team of the World Bank Treasury. This team will be on the ground in St. Vincent and the Grenadines between March 16th to 17th of 2023 to conduct the technical advisory mission related to the assumptions, findings, results, and recommendations of the 11th valuation report.
Minister Gonzalez says he anticipates and has been informed that the receipt of the final report from the World Bank mission would take place no later than 60 days after their mission to SVG in March this year. He said Cabinet will be guided by the submission of the report from the World Bank mission and the final report of the 11th actuarial evaluation to make recommendations to Parliament as to the way forward.
In addition, the government will lay a copy of the final actuarial valuation report and the RAMP report of the World Bank before this honorable House. The last actuarial report of the National Insurance Fund was conducted as of the December 31st, 2019, and it covered a 3-year period from 2017 to 2019. Also, the same review covers the 60-year demographic and financial projections following the Caribbean Actuarial Association's actuarial practice standards for Social Security programs. Further, the review was conducted by LifeWorks Bahamas, led by qualified actuaries Derek Osborne and Marcia Tam Marks. The report's assessments of the NIS's policy and design indicators suggest that the current contribution and benefits provisions provide a fairly good level of benefit adequacy and income protection to most. In addition, the results indicate the fund is not financially sustainable over the medium to long term at current benefit provisions and contribution rates. Therefore, if there are no further parametric reforms or no further increases in contribution rate, the fund is projected to be depleted between 2033 and 2036.
The finance minister further noted that if the reserves on the NIS are exhausted because of no change in the contribution rate and or benefit provisions, there will be there will be two possible sources of additional income to meet benefit payment.
First, higher contributions from employers and workers, or special transfers from the government as per Section 15 of the National Insurance Act. It is important to note that the projected fund exhaustion years, 2033 to 2036, that in those years, the current contribution rate would only be available to cover about 60% of pension and benefits. At the end of the projection period, in 2079, the current contribution rate would only be able to cover about 34% of benefits and expenses. Lastly, like all other social security programs in the Caribbean, the social security system of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is partially funded. This is an intentional funding method where the current reserves, together with the current contribution rate, would only cover a proportion of the projected benefit expenses over the 60-year period. If the Caribbean social security systems adopt a fully funded method, such as a private pension, the contribution rate would not be affordable on the part of employers. For this reason, the regional systems develop a scaled premium method of financing. This method allows for changes in contribution rates and benefits provisions to ensure long-term sustainability of the social security systems. On the additional query by the honourable member about the date of laying of the actuarial report. Up to this morning, the honourable clerk of the House and I have been going through to try to find out what the dates are. And at this point, I do not have a complete answer for you on the previous dates at which it was laid. Very many points we have discovered where the actuarial report has been discussed in Parliament, either by the Honourable Prime Minister in his capacity as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, or prior to that by the then Honourable Arnim Eustace in his capacity as Minister of Finance and Prime Minister. But we have yet to isolate dates upon which the actuarial reports have been laid before this Honourable House, and that's something that we're still working on. I don't have a direct answer for the honourable member at this point in time.
Stressing the need for pension reform, the finance minister reiterated in Parliament on Thursday, as he did in his budget presentation of 2023, that if there is no reform in the contributory rate or benefits, there will be a depletion of the NIS funds.
The fact of the matter is that people are living longer, and more money is being paid out. And that's just a demographic reality that all national insurance schemes across the Caribbean are facing, and some of them have already belled the cat and engaged in the same reforms that we are discussing, and others are in the same process that we are in now, having consultations and discussions about this reform. And this is something that is very important. As honourable members know, one of the fastest growing line items in the budget is our pension payments, and it is a product of the generosity of the system and the demographic constraints that we face now. And we have to have this conversation about reform. And I sincerely want to engage the honourable members of the opposition as well on their views and their inputs in how best we can create an NIS that is both fit for purpose going forward and sustainable.
Also in Parliament on Thursday, the Finance Minister was asked about the monies being invested by the NIS in the hotel project at Diamond and on what terms. In his response, Minister Gonzalez said the NIS is providing $3.5 million in non-cash equity to the hotel project, which is the value of the land upon which the hotel is being constructed.
The fact of the matter is that people are living longer, and more money is being paid out. And that's just a demographic reality that all national insurance schemes across the Caribbean are facing. And some of them have already belled the cat and engaged in the same reforms that we are discussing, and others are in the same process that we are in now, having consultations and discussions about this reform. And this is something that is very important. As honourable members know, one of the fastest rising line items, fastest growing line items in the budget is our pension payments, and it is a product of the generosity of the system and the demographic constraints that we face now. And we have to have this conversation about reform. And I sincerely want to engage the honourable members of the opposition as well on their views and their inputs in how best we can create an NIS that is both fit for purpose going forward and sustainable in the medium to long term.
In reference to the terms of the NIS loan for the government-backed hotel project, Minister Gonzalez said the amount is $15 million with a term of 10 years, an interest rate of 6.5% and a grace period of 12 months. In other news, Minister of Tourism Carlos James at a news conference today said while they are seeing an uptick in the tourism numbers coming out of the global health pandemic of COVID-19, SVG is still not out of the woods. Minister James noted that while there continues to be significant challenges with air access, he is excited for the start of daily flights from Miami, commencing this Friday.
In terms of the regional and interregional travel, but we are seeing the very promising side of tourism that is ahead of us on the horizon. And I speak to this coming Friday, when we will see the commencement of daily flights to St. Vincent and the Grenadines from American Airlines. In fact, this Friday from, I believe the flight is scheduled for 2:30 in the afternoon, we'll see the first daily flight touching down at Argyle International Airport from Miami International. It has been a very important period. It will be an important period for us in terms of air access to St. Vincent and the Grenadines from our major source markets. And it has been a very tremendous undertaken by the Tourism Authority and Glenn Beach, who is the Chief Executive Officer. I know he has been very integral in the development of all of the flights that we see coming in to Argyle International Airport from Air Canada, who is operating currently out of Toronto, and he will provide some updates on that a bit later. CAL operating out of JFK in New York, Virgin Atlantic operating out of Heathrow, and American Airlines will now start from this Friday their daily flights from Miami International to Argyle International Airport. The tourism minister said for the first period of daily international flights to St. Vincent and the Grenadines is very commendable and a very important milestone for the people of SVG. And now, 6 years after the operationalization of the Argyle International Airport, we're seeing the first period of having daily flights coming to our market from an international airport to Argyle International Airport. So indeed, Friday is going to be a very important milestone for the country and for our tourism product. So we continue to see a number of measures being taken to address what I will consider the challenge we have with intra-regional flights. So while on one hand we're celebrating the arrival of the daily flights from Miami, we still have difficulty having access to some of our islands within CARICOM. It is one of the challenges which I know at CARICOM heads level. There are discussions, and there's currently a report being prepared by the Caribbean Development Bank to see how best we can facilitate having the financing, the operationalization of a more robust intra-regional air travel in terms of air transportation. And these discussions are ongoing, and hopefully we can see some promising results in the not too distant future as it relates to intra-regional travel.
Minister James anticipates additional flights from Caribbean Airlines and Inter-Caribbean, which he said will ease the travel woes of people coming into and out of SVG.
I believe they're adding about 4 ATRs to their existing fleet to operate within the Southern Caribbean. We expect to see fleet expansion for Inter-Caribbean Airways as well. They will be increasing their fleet, and I believe they will add a new ATR as well to try to address the demand. There is a huge demand for intra-regional travel, and I know all of the regional air carriers, they are doing their best to see how they can facilitate the demand that is there to take persons from one destination to the next within CARICOM. And it's very challenging sometimes when even at the CARICOM heads and delegation and ministers meetings, sometimes we fly to Miami to have meetings relative to CARICOM matters, because it's easier to get to Miami than flying into Dominica or St. Kitts or Antigua or St. Vincent and the Grenadines within this time frame and the schedule that you would want to have these meetings. It is something which I think all of us must take it into account in terms of the serious void that has been left since we've had a fall off from LIAT in terms of their operation.
And at today's news conference, Chief Executive Officer of the SVG Tourism Authority, Glenn Beach, said besides St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there are 3 other countries that will not be receiving flights from Air Canada over the summer, which the airline announced early this month. Speaking on the matter today, Beach said it is no fault of St. Vincent nor Air Canada.
Late last year, I think it was, the Canadian government changed some of the laws and rules with regard to flight time for crew members, of which they shortened it. As a matter of fact, from Toronto to Antigua and Barbuda is actually the last place they can, up to Antigua and Barbuda is where they can go to without having to overnight their crew members. So Antigua has kept their flights, but places like St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, who've had 2 flights weekly, it has been very difficult. And in a time like this where all the airlines, not just Air Canada, WestJet, Sunwing, American Airlines, Southwest, Virgin, all airlines around the world, Air Berlin, there is a shortage of pilots internationally. And that is an issue. Now, the problem we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with it is that at 2 flights per week, that means the pilots and the crew would have to stay here for at least 3 days until the next flight gets in for them to fly back. And it's just not reasonable for them to do this. And basically, it's that any country that cannot sustain more than 2 flights weekly, it is difficult for them to do that, because it means their pilots would be here, their crew members would just be here doing nothing for those few days. As the minister said, we know we've had difficulty with the regional air travel, but not only difficulty with regional air travel, that would be more cost to Air Canada to fly their crew from here to Barbados, then to catch the flight up and so on. It's a difficult situation.
As to the way forward, Beach noted that they are hoping for a favorable response from a meeting held last Thursday with officials of Air Canada.
In our conversation with Air Canada, we put a solution to them for that problem. I'm not going to go into the solution here because Air Canada has promised to get back to us by Friday of this week in terms of what their answer is to it. They were very happy, as out of the 4 countries, we're the only ones that came with a solution to the issue. and they were very happy about that. They understand our concerns, and especially at a time where Canada is our fastest growing source market. It is growing extremely fast. Canadians are traveling. One of the things that we're looking at, especially, I know everybody's speaking about Carnival and so on, which is huge for us. But one of the things that we've been looking at, and stats don't lie, is that more Canadians are looking to travel during the summer also, because it's a time when they can bring their family. And so we've seen an uptake in terms of Canadians traveling with their family, especially during the summer. So kind of us not getting those flights out of Toronto at least twice weekly for the summer is hit us hard. And they actually apologized for it, because their communications manager knew the same day that we did. Their networking agents department had taken it off. And I should tell you, even before that, a week and a half before that one, they had taken those flights off, and we spoke to them and they said they'd make every effort to see, and they put those flights back on. And then a week and a half after, they took them off again.
As the Argyle International Airport celebrates 6 years of operation this month, several workers were recognized and awarded for their years of service. Addressing the AIA's 6th anniversary recognition and award ceremony on Friday, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves reflected on the journey of completing a project that seemed impossible to many. The Prime Minister said that during the journey of the completion of the Argyle International Airport, there were many challenges, from critics to finance.
We decided on Argyle how to build it. We didn't have any money, but we have land here, some of it, but we had land elsewhere to pay for the land here. So that's the first thing. How are we going to do the design for the aerodrome? Cuba doesn't have money, but they have a lot of trained people. So I went to see Fidel about the technical persons to help us to design the aerodrome. I talked to my brethren Chavez, because Fidel has a lot of expertise but not so much money. Chavez has some money. So I went to him. And as always with both Fidel and Chavez, two excellent comrades, heroic figures in Latin America and the Caribbean, indeed in the world. I said to Chavez, jokingly, I wanted equipment, so that we got the first set of equipment from Venezuela. But I want some startup money. Trinidad had a lot of oil money. And my brethren Patrick Manning was Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister used the opportunity to pay tribute to some persons who contributed to the operation of the Argyle International Airport and thanked the current staff for their contribution and commitment to their jobs.
Thank all the workers, professionals who toiled in this. And I want to thank all the leaders, and particularly Fidel and Chavez, who were very instrumental, and President Chen and other Taiwanese leaders. Thank Fidel for his practical advice and other things. And I want to thank the workers who are here for their contribution. Even those who feel that it is their requirement every day to bad talk me and pull me down. What I don't understand is this. Old people say that when I dead, Ants go and bring the news, give me. And if I'm living, you think I can go here?
First chairman of the AIA Board of Directors, Garth Saunders, was awarded a token of appreciation, thanking the Prime Minister for his mastermind in accomplishing the project. Saunders urged members and staff of the AIA to remember the rich history and the importance of the project to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Able to satisfy so many homeowners and to make them happy even up to today. So I want to again thank that effort, led by Rudy, and of course inspired by our Prime Minister, because I know he gave a lot of the advice and the guidance in terms of settling with the residents. And I dare say he was very generous. We all felt so, but that is our Prime Minister. So we have to, again, thank him, and they'll remember the advice. This airport is steeped in history, and it's very important.
So I want us all to remember that. And I'm no longer chairman of the board, but I'm available. I'm not as young and energetic as I used to be. I have some challenges, of course, but that's where we are today. So thank you very much, board of directors, management, and staff.
306 candidates passed 5 subjects or more, inclusive of English language and mathematics, in the 2022 sitting of CSEC. However, 75 candidates failed to pass at least one subject. This was noted in Parliament last Thursday by Education Minister Curtis King, who said for the candidates who sat 5 subjects or more, 29 received no passes, and 46 who sat less than 5 subjects recorded 0 passes. Minister King was responding to a question from opposition MP for the Southern Grenadines, Terence Oliver, on the analysis of the 2022 CSEC examination data and what new initiatives or incentives will be implemented to improve students' performance or success at internal and external examinations. He said the Ministry of Education is currently working to acquire an education management information system that will provide teachers and administrators with the requisite tools to better track school attendance, academic performance, and other important data relevant to subjects at their respective schools so that they can make well-informed decisions to promote and improve academic performance.
The portal will also provide access to students and their parents and guardians, thus providing greater autonomy and access to information regarding their studies. This may help to improve students' engagement, motivation, and sense of achievement. In the meantime, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education will continue to help teachers to focus on improving their teaching and assessment methods, to cater for the various learning styles of their students in their respective classrooms. We will also continue to provide ongoing professional development training for teachers and to provide the necessary resources to allow schools to help reduce absenteeism as we work on different aspects to improve all students' academic performance. Finally, our teachers are key in providing new incentives and creative suggestions to motivate students to improve their performance in their internal and external exam.
On the temporary building to house the staff and students of the Mary Hutchinson Primary School, which should have been completed in December 2022 and in use for teaching and learning by January 2023, Minister King told Parliament that it was a disappointment for him and the Ministry of Education when the projected completion date did not materialize. But they are hoping the staff and students will move to the new temporary building soon.
I was advised that a number of unexpected supply chain issues hampered the work program, which significantly delayed the project. The work is now making steady progress and is approximately 75% completed. 4 of the 5 buildings are substantially completed. The contractor is awaiting the delivery of windows. In fact, the supplier has experienced delays with certain components of the particular windows. The 5th building is behind schedule. However, the subcontractor is committed to increasing the labor force to have the project completed within the revised end date of March 31st, 2023. If, and I said if the revised completion date is achieved by the contractor, then the buildings will be made available to students for the beginning of the 3rd term. Of course, the temporary building will provide accommodation for the staff and students of the Mary Hutchinson Primary School, which is being currently housed in the Learning Resource Center.
118 persons have applied to participate in the Ministry of Agriculture's Fleet Expansion Program, which was announced in the 2022 budget presentation that the government will be partnering with the Kingstown Cooperative Credit Union Limited to provide affordable loans to assist fisherfolk to purchase boats and to expand and upgrade the local fishing industry. In Parliament on Thursday, Minister responsible for the fisheries sector, Saboto Caesar, provided a breakdown of the numbers in his response to a question from an opposition MP on how many persons have applied for loans, how many loans have been approved, and how many fishing boats have been purchased under the program thus far.
And just a breakdown of the 118, 65 persons for pirogues, 44 persons for engines, 6 persons for tuna boats, and 3 persons for repair work to be done to their boats. From the credit union's standpoint and their processing procedure, 63 of the 118 have been processed. The breakdown of the 63, 34 persons for pirogues, 27 engines, and 2 the tuna boats. The vetting of the other 55 will continue. Some persons have some missing information, there's some queries, they're doing some due diligence work, and it is expected that this will be completed in short order.
Minister Caesar told Parliament that from a recent discussion, they are looking to bring to a close the application process for the Fleet Expansion Program on March 10th.
It's good to aggregate all the information from the applicants, because just to underscore an important point, getting the boat is one thing. You have to ensure that as it pertains to the parts for the boats, that you start to stock the parts and you don't have too much of a wide variation in different types of boats, because it's when it comes to the issue of repairing the boats, that could be a headache if you don't have an organized platform with similarities.
On the issue of the tuna fleet, Minister Caesar told Parliament that a consultant was recently in the country and advised them on how cautious they will have to be when it comes to tuna fishing.
Not only from the standpoint that it has to be done within the realms of the international legal framework that is out there, International Law of the Seas, and also ICAT framework, because you don't just get a tuna vessel, flag it SVG, and head out to sea. There's a very entrepreneurial fisher, investor, who has acquired on his own a tuna vessel, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, we're giving him all of the support needed. He's at the process where he's doing the licensing, and we have to ensure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's, because there are significant reportage and reporting conditions which we must meet. Quite recently, a neighboring country did not meet those conditions and had a red card issued against them that they had to come up with the information quickly, or they would not have been able to continue to ship tuna.